what is an artist for me? Well, an artist is someone producing things, objects. It can be films, it can be sculpture, it can be installations, it can be writings. And I think she is working on different directions, trying to push, in a way, subjects that he identified as interesting and that he wants to work with other people as well. I think that the artist is not alone anymore in his studio, but whether outside, trying to interact with the world, with the environment, with people. So I think art is also political in a way. It's also about engaging yourself into a practice, into the world by saying something more. You add something, so you have a responsibility as well as an artist. And that's pretty much around that I will define what could be an artist today.
I think an artist, if you're talking about visual art, this is one thing. Then you can talk about writers, for example, or about creative people in general. For me, it's always a leitmotif to go through 3 different steps. Somebody, an artist, a writer, a filmmaker, also a musician, attracts the viewer or attracts the spectator, which is the first part, it's the aesthetic part in a way. If the work is strong enough in order to make you engage with the work, which means like you associate something of your personal experiences with the work, it's the poetic phase. So you get more into the mental, into the intellectual depths. But then the third part is very important, where the spectator or the recipient transforms what he sees, hears, listens into own mental, intellectual developments, where he or she says, oh, this is interesting for me. I think I want to change my behavior. I understand something, like in his film. The viewer understands, oh, this is about bees, but it's also about urban development. It's also about balance or imbalance of nature and activities of humans. It's also about gender. It's also about risking something. And then suddenly the viewer says, okay, this is interesting for me, so I engage. And I want to change something. I want to learn more about bees and the dying of bees all over the world. For me, this is art.
I think the artist is also a citizen in a way. So as a citizen, he has a responsibility to behave in society and to understand what is around him in order to engage with other people, to respect them, to challenge them. And still, dialogue is very important. And when you work with actors or when you work with people to record them, I think that's important as well, that you get into them and with them into journey. That's why I think that's really important, that there is more artists, there is more poets, there is more people doing things, trying to get out there, because that's, again, citizenship in a way, sharing ideas, being challenged by them, putting them into perspective, in dialogue, discussing them, and
the civil responsibility which everybody has. I think today there are so many things happening all over the world, political-wise, social-wise. We cannot just, specifically if we are educated people, we cannot just ignore things. We really have to think, and we have to try to understand better. This is also tolerance. I cannot go to a museum and say, this is bullshit, I don't understand it. Why do I have to read text in order to understand the work? Excuse me, this is how it is today. You have to move your brain cells in a way. You have to feel the challenge, and you also have to work a little bit on everything. And it doesn't matter from which social background you come. We work a lot with Mexican kids. Like during a film festival which is called Cinema Planeta, we have like 35,000 kids in 4 weeks we are working with. And they come from different social backgrounds, and they are like sponges. They are incredible. They understand highly intellectual works, and they give their speeches, they give their ideas, they contribute to a positive or to a potential change. So I think it's very important to be open-minded, and to be tolerant, and to be curious. I think curiosity is something very, very important nowadays in culture in general. And culture is a very important pillar of society all over the world. Even in developing countries. I just came back from India, and it's amazing how this subcontinent, which is suffering from many, many problems, has a very good mass of intellectual, smart people who don't always come from rich backgrounds, but these are people who ought to educate themselves and who are really longing for a change.
Yeah, it was wonderful to talk about this project, how we could make it, and how are we going to put camera into China, how are we going to fly there, are we going to be able to meet Xue Xiaobin, the beekeeper, and all those questions. So it's really about that as well, about production in a way. So.
Yeah, and also about giving advice. We started talking about the project in the month of December. And going back and forth, who is going to be involved, who is going to be the camera team, the sound mixer, etc. And then we said, well, maybe we should check also which are the convenient dates for the bees, because the bees are not performing the whole year through. And it was very difficult to get in touch with the beekeeper and the people there. And then suddenly they said, well, it was in the month of March, yeah, you have to come in the first week of April. And we said, what? In 4 weeks, how can we make that happen? So we found flights, we found the team, we contracted the team. We contacted Xue Xiaobin, the beekeeper, and we had collaborators in China, the Organ House in Chongqing, which was recommended to us by Pro Helvetia, the Swiss governmental institution. So we put all our networks together in order to make that happen in a very short amount of time. And this was only possible by collaborating in a very close way.
The matter we are working with as filmmakers, it's time. So how, in a short film, in a short amount of time, we are getting into a subject. So for me it was important to have an introduction in a way into the environment, not just the beekeeper itself, that was the main subject, but what was around it. And Chongqing City is a subject in itself, but I couldn't do a subject on Chongqing itself because it has been done by others, filmmakers, and well as well. So I thought, how can I move through the Hulong Valley and start to get into the Chongqing city, and afterward, how can I possibly introduce Xue Xiaobin in a way that would make sense, and as well that will let the audience get into the subject slowly, not by just saying, well, that's a man that covers himself like bees, but how can you understand that before we are even human beings, there were nature, and that's where I shot the first part of the film. It's in Hulong, which is a World Heritage Site. So it's completely preserved from thousands of years and even millions of years before us. So I thought, how can I put that into perspective? How can I understand and record as well this subtlety, this time? So I thought there is maybe the Stone Age, then after there is the Golden Age, and maybe what is the future for us? And I thought that Xue Xiaobin at some point is creating this understanding of what comes next, this understanding between humans and nature, and that's why I made this film. I think that's really to understand what comes next, with putting into perspective what we know from the past as well. So it's important to not be amnesic, but to work with heritage as well, work with our past knowledge, and there is a lot of it. So that's a modest attempt to tackle this subject in a way.
But this is why he tries to express many ideas in a very subtle way, not political, but in a poetic way. And the way how Marc expresses it is only possible by moving images. How can you put the issue of bees and the dying of bees, Chongqing, urban development, the clash in between traditions and nature and highly intense urban development, identity, time. How can you put all of this into one artwork? Moving images is perfect for this, and it's very attractive for the viewer.
Each year, 10,000 tourists visit Ocean Beach. This summer, Ocean Beach has attracted something else.
I think I was like 10 years old. I was spending my first holiday apart from my family at the house of my aunt in Andalusia in southern Spain. 4 weeks. I was 10 years old. I was happy but terribly homesick. And we went to the movies and I saw Der Polyp, which was a movie about a big underwater creature. It was terrifying, and it was the first movie I ever saw in my life, and it impacted me so much because it created horror in me. So this, regarding your question, what was your first movie which impacted you? But it didn't really inspire me to work on video and movies. I think that came later, maybe at the beginning of the years 2000, where art was moving more into the new media, I would say. And I understood specifically the time I spent in New York that this is the future, that in order to be able to reach younger audience, you have to be on their side. You cannot always be in the traditional part of the arts. You can create content for the audience which is maybe a little bit more attractive for the younger people. And for us, for Artboard Making Waves, it's important to walk the talk. We cannot only talk about climate change and sustainability and how to reduce your climate impact and your CO2 emission by traveling huge works around the planet. And video is a perfect medium for this. So I think this is a practical approach and a visual approach, and also an approach regarding the results, which led me to this.
From my side, as far as I remember, I think it was a film around 12, 13, 14 years old. I don't really remember. It was a school trip to the cinema. And I had the chance to experience a film which is called Microcosmos. It's a film about animals, small creatures, and it's like an amazing film. It's like the first film, I think, that we're able to catch the small creatures, the ants, and in a very small scale. There is no sound, and it's all about how does snail are making love, how does ants get their food, all those type of things. And I think that really was really impacting. The music was really amazing as well. So I think at this point I understood that something was happening there, but I did not think that I was going to become a filmmaker one day. But I really had consciousness about something had happened after that film.